Mining makes the world go round. That's probably not something we think about every day, but the truth is, without the resources we dig out of the ground, our lives would be very different. Gold, platinum, palladium, coal, manganese, iron ore. The list of minerals below our feet is not a short one, and each of these minerals plays a part in our daily lives. From our laptop computers, to the food we eat, to the cars we drive. These resources keep us healthy, productive, entertained, and stimulated. But what does it take to get these resources out of the ground and into our hands? A lot more than meets the eye. The Highveld region of Mpumalanga in South Africa is famous for its surface coal deposits, and our first load plays an important role in preparing ground for these deposits to be mined.
I'm Adrian Nel, working for Tonne Mining. I'm the operations manager for this specific project. Tonne Mining is a contractor mining. We only do the removing of the ground up to the material. In this case, it's coal. Once we're done, we'll start rehabilitating it, but we're only doing the stripping of material. So the deposit is not ours, we just mine for the client. This specific project started off about 3 years ago. Start looking at the area where we're mining, get the people involved. This Hitachi 2600 used for overburden stripping. This is one of the machines that we needed for the operations that will be in production in the next month. So we need to gel the machines and the people in next week.
The machine in question is the giant Hitachi EX2600-6. This behemoth of an earth mover is 254 tons of chassis, boom, bucket and tracks, and has been assembled here at the Tau Assembly Yard. Despite being a mode of transport capable of its own locomotion, the hard soils and grit of the open roads can damage these tracks, hence a need to be transported rather than driven.
This specific machine comes from Katu. We took it apart, we transported to this assembly yard of ours. We then put it together, and from there we need to get it into the mine.
Getting the excavator from assembly to mining yard is going to require the skills of someone with years of experience. Someone like this man.
I'm Fritz Kroon, the owner of Fritz Kroon Transport. I started the business in 1999 with one truck, Old International Paystar, and from there on we grew to a magnificent company that we are now.
Loading the excavator onto the trailer will take some ingenuity and a lot of elbow grease. The Fritz Kroon team will dig a 1.5 meter trench underneath the excavator, keeping the tracks of the machine resting steadily on terra firma. The trailer will then be backed into the cavity, and the hydraulic pistons will inch upwards towards the underbelly of the excavator, supporting it and raising it away from the ground. Then, in order to generate enough power to haul the load out of the trench, Fritz's team will connect a second truck cab to the one already attached to the trailer. It's a resourceful but daring plan, and critical to its success will be the correct depth of trench and having enough horsepower to get this gigantic piece of machinery lifted and stable.
What could go wrong today? Maybe some hydraulic cylinders bursting because of the settings not right on the trailer. That becomes a problem and the whole thing can topple over. You work with machines and all that, there's always a little bit of stress around it and worries about it. We try to minimize that, to quadruple check everything. Every valve that must be open is open, everyone that must be closed is closed.
For the trailer to be able to lift this gigantic load, it uses something called a hydraulic lift, which essentially transforms a small force into a big force, one big enough to pick up a 250-ton excavator. And it can do this because of the clever way it uses pressure Now, pressure describes the relationship between a force and how much area that force is pushing over. So, I've drawn a little diagram here to show how pressure's used in the hydraulic lift. So that noisy hydraulic pump is represented over on this side. Now that creates a force which pushes down on this relatively small piston on this side, which creates a pressure in this fluid in the system, and that's called a hydraulic fluid. That hydraulic fluid transfers the pressure all the way around to this much bigger piston that wants to lift on this side. The only physical compromise is that for this relatively small force on this side, that piston needs to move a fairly long way compared to the small amount of lift you get over here, but with a much bigger force. But fortunately for this excavator, a small amount of lift is all that's needed.
The team is ready, and the enormous 24-wheeler low bed is backed into the trench. This is precision driving, and all in reverse.
The team's pinpoint accuracy has ensured the trailer sits perfectly under the excavator. And now the gap between them is supplemented by one of the most sophisticated and modern materials available: timber.
As the low bed lifts, it takes the weight of the excavator, lifting it off the ground. All's going according to plan. All that can be planned, that is.
Weather's always a problem. It's a challenging one today. Big problems, obviously it's rain. Previous times we had slipping or spinning because it was wet. With abnormals in South Africa, you're not allowed to travel when you have to put your lights on. So that's either mist, rainy, or at night.
Rain has unexpectedly started falling, and with the entire team on the clock, any delay in delivery will cost them valuable time and money.
The rain clouds in Urgis have lifted, and the team see an opportunity to spring into action. But lifting the 254-ton apparatus is going to need a little more horsepower than Fritz currently has. Luckily, he's come prepared.
In South Africa, although it's not on public roads, we need at least 20% traction. We use two 600 horsepower front horses with a normal I-shift gearbox. The second one, or the one coupled to the trailer or the gooseneck, is with a Allison transfer box and a torque converter, which transfer the power much better down towards the wheels. They don't have clutch pedals anymore, it's only brakes, it's all automatic.
A specialized coupling connects the two cabs, giving a combined engine capacity of 1,200 horsepower. Still, the two drivers are going to have to use all their concentration to get the load on the road.
With dark skies looming and the threat of further rain, the team need to get a shift on. Will their combined pulling power be enough in these treacherous conditions?
So as soon as he starts accelerate a bit, he would feel it's taking power, and then he would radio to the guy in front and say, right, please proceed, and he would start moving. So I've got my own handheld talking to the guys just to oversee everything that's going on. They know exactly what to do. The thing that we don't want to hear is quick few stops behind each other to say there's a problem, yeah.
The engines start to turn. Will the excavator budge? The combined power of two cabs overcome the 254-ton weight, and the load is free. Next stop, the Tau mining yard, just 11 kilometers away down one dusty district road. It's quite literally straightforward, but the sandy terrain and the ever-present threat of rain make it more complicated than it seems.
The 11-kilometer bit that's in front of us feels like 111. Obviously, it's metal fatigue and the stress levels are more, the concentration is more.
The miserly speed of just 5 kilometers an hour ensures the load travels safely. But with rain threatening and the associated risks growing, it's got to be tempting to put your foot down.
Trailers are not built for that type of road that we're on. You can break pinions, you can break axles, you can pop a cylinder. So there's a lot of things that can happen that we don't want to let it happen.
But the rain clouds have abated and the end is in sight.
When you finish and we deliver the load, then it's all over. Okay, it's offloaded. It's job satisfaction. It's feeling proud. Accomplish another tick on your box. We've done that. Right, what's the next challenge? These are in our blood. We love it.
It's job well done for the Fritz Kroon team, who, despite the obstacles of the weather, have delivered on time. Coal, despite its environmental consequences, remains one of South Africa's most economically viable resources. It drives energy production in the country, and much of it's exported for international use. But it's not the only resource this country exports to the world.
Platinum group metals, or PGMs, are a very different resource to coal. These metals like palladium, rhodium, and of course platinum itself have very high melting points and unique catalytic properties. They line the insides of our car exhausts, make great medical equipment and computer hard drives. And because they're reusable, they're more environmentally efficient too.
But getting these metals out of the ground is a far more complex operation than coal. And today's load plays a vital role in this operation.
I'm Ashraf Dawud. We are a steel engineering and fabrication company based in Rustenburg. We mainly supply all of the mines in and around Rustenburg with all of the steel fabrication, equipment, valves, pumps, mainly servicing all of the mining sites in and around the greater Rustenburg area.
My name is Talent Tanda. I'm a production manager for Max Gear Engineering. My main job is to start from the quotations, estimations, go to site, get the cost done, get the orders, material procurement, make sure that everything works smooth until the job is given to the client. The load we are going to load today is a 200-ton beam. It's a beam that is used to load PGMs of platinum. It was designed in such a way that it can take 200 tons of smooth soil.
The structure is split into two pieces. The one piece is about 14 tons, and the other piece is about 5 to 6 tons in weight.
The 20-ton concentrate storage bin can hold a capacity of 200 tons and is designed to store and discharge raw materials at a specifically designed flow rate. Its custom-shaped walls prevent the mined material from building up, and its job is vital to keep production flowing at the Anglo-Platinum Mogalakwena mine near Mokopane.
When we manufacture, we need to make sure that we have made it to the dot, the size that needs to be done.
In fabrication, something of this size, you're working on about 5 millimeters of tolerance on each specific item, which is Not a lot. Their tolerances are extremely, extremely important. And the last thing you'd want is everything gets to site and then it doesn't fit. That could be a monumental problem, actually more like a disaster.
The first engineering challenge is to get the 20-ton capacity storage bin onto the trailer. To prevent unnecessary strain on the structure in the onload and along the journey, the bin is loaded in 2 parts. To do this, the team will use a 50-ton crane capable of lifting 5 times its own weight with an optimal crane height, a towering 40 meters above the ground. The trailer will have to park as close as possible to the crane. Once the first half of the storage bin is loaded, the trailer will inch forward and the second half of the bin will follow the same painstaking process.
So the crane that we've selected for this, even though the structure itself, or the bin, if you can call it, is 20 tons, the crane that will be lifting this will be a 50-ton crane. It's over capacity. Sometimes we also add about a 10 to 15% threshold just to ensure that we are within the comfortable guidelines and safety standards in lifting that.
My name is William Tonne. I'm driving the crane for a long time.
We've got to ensure that our guys are well trained in order to manage the load when we are in the loading phase. Make sure we have the correct equipment available to do the load, because everything's planned on a very tight schedule. So if we delay the load on our side, it has a knock-on effect on everyone else, and that can monumentally increase the costs and also delay the end user when it comes to installation on site.
When you work, you must have a rigger. A rigger is tight the load. When you don't tight your load exactly, it's gonna follow.
With the riggers happy, William is ready to load the first half of the platinum bin, the funneled section. It's up to the driver to position his trailer in just the right place for the most even weight distribution. Using additional ropes to steady the load as it hangs, the team slowly maneuver the funnel above the trailer. A load this heavy can easily swing out of place. The trailer readjusts to ensure the correct balance is maintained. The funnel lowers. The weight is just right. Now it's time for the second component of the bin to load. With less line of sight, the driving team has to rely on effective communication to ensure he's in the right position.
The load is on board and the rigging team breathe a sigh of relief. It's time to get it strapped down and prepare for the journey ahead.
I'm Joe Musalam Khanedi. Since I've been working here at the Abnormal 2000 until now.
My name is Pascalis Salele Mahache.
Sometimes we're working together, sometimes I'm working with all the trucks and the companies.
The load will undertake an extended 3-day journey across 3 provinces, traveling over 450 kilometers. Its first task will be to leave the Maxgill yard with just centimeters to spare as the load moves out. It will then make its way down the N4 and onto the N1, passing the nation's capital, Tonne, and past Marble Hall. Here they'll have to wait for a new traffic escort before proceeding into the Limpopo province. The team will then need to pass through the small town roads of Mokopane and onto the Makalakwena mine. It's a long-haul journey, with stamina and patience key to a successful delivery.
But the team's first big test is just meters away from their departure point, getting through the narrow Maxgill entranceway.
Trees, telephone lines and a sharp left turn onto the road all make this a perilous undertaking for our drivers. Pascal and Talent guide the vehicle through this tiny gap. Any damage to the load could have serious ramifications later on. The load is safely out the gates, barring a few scratches from the overhanging branches. It's time to hit the road. But the open road is not all plain sailing.
The risks on the road, we've got the risk of the other people, they don't understand the abnormals. Even if we are traveling at the street, they just came to you. So they can come to the load, you see. Even if you show them it's abnormal.
With the traffic escort providing clearance for oncoming traffic, the load can make good ground, meaning their load is likely to arrive on time.
But a long journey like this also has its delays. Whilst this setting might not seem like an impediment, it's a real problem when it comes to the traffic escort.
The storage bin has reached the provincial border between Mpumalanga and Limpopo. And it's here that it has to wait for a new provincial escort to accompany it over the last stretch. For the drivers, it means long, inevitable waits on the side of the road. It's a common problem for many abnormal load drivers. And this isolation poses far more than just boredom.
Ding wat ons kry altyd, ons kry by ander plekke. Hulle gooi vir ons by 'n wrong plek, want ons sê hierso, ons kan nie parkeer. En dan ons gaan seer kry. Dan ek bel my eienaar. En dan die eienaar, hy sê vir my, "Oké, ek sal plan maak." Dan hy maak ook plan dat ons kan stop by 'n veilige plek. Ons kan nie daar so slap altyd hulle maak die mense doodmaak van die abnormaal. Hulle vat die wiele, hulle vat die battery en die tires. En daai plekke wat gevaarlik.
Traffic escorts aren't just there to satisfy bureaucracy. For the abnormal load drivers, they offer security and safety, not just for themselves, but for other road users.
Sometimes it's better if you are traveling with the police of the escort. They can show that this is dangerous. You mustn't come closer to them. You must just stay away from the abnormals.
Eventually, after a long wait, the Limpopo traffic escort is here, and the drivers can take off again.
By traveling with the trucks, you see a lot of countries and the other provinces. You experience many different things. You learn a lot.
For our drivers, it's a chance to relax and take in the one-of-a-kind bushveld scenery.
South Africa is a beautiful country. I love it.
Is the country have mountains, rivers. It's a beautiful country.
After a week on the move, the concentrate bin arrives at its destination, 435 kilometres down the road. Here it will be offloaded and installed to become a vital cog in the process of collecting the mine materials that make possible our mobile phones, our laptops, and even our motor vehicles.
We were very proud with the way we did the job because it was quite a challenging job. You know, when you look at the drawing, you said, "Oh, are we going to make this thing?" But you know, as you go on seeing the thing standing, the beams is in, but we are so proud as McGill to do such a nice job.
I think one of the most fun things of working with something of this size is taking it from a flat piece of paper, getting it into a 3D model, managing it through the fabrication process, and at the end, getting it out to the client, and the client phones and say, hey, I've got my stuff, everything's okay, it's fitted in, it's working. It gives you a very, very great deal of satisfaction.
When it comes to what PGMs are used for, we probably tend to think most about electronics, laptops, television sets, medical equipment. But did you know they also play a large part in farming?
Here in South Africa, farming is an important part of the economy. It's a significant provider of employment, especially in the rural areas, and a major source of foreign exchange.
But only 12% of the land is really suitable for growing crops, and the soil tends to be low in nitrogen, which means there's a huge demand for one of PGM's biggest byproducts, fertilizer.
My name is Ezra Mlambo. I'm the General Manager Operations for Fosco. Fosco basically it's a phosphate company. Basically we make fertilizer, phosphoric acid and sulfuric acid. For the country, we are the main producer of phosphate-based fertilizer. We have our sulfuric acid plant A and B, which is the older plant. So in the B plant, we are replacing what we call cold heat exchanger. So one of the older units has reached its end of life.
The task for replacing the exchanger has been won by engineering specialists Tyson Krupp.
My name is Andre van Zyl, and I'm a project manager with ThyssenKrupp, Industrial Solutions South Africa. This is a cold heat exchanger. It is in the sulfur gas plant, and inside this vessel, you won't believe it, there's about 21 kilometers of 50 millimeters tubing.
So we spent about 3,300 hours to complete it. At one stage, we almost utilized the complete workshop to be sure that we get this thing done in time for the client so that we can actually transport this thing to site tomorrow.
At 16 meters long, 8.5 meters high, and 120 tons in weight, the heat exchanger is no slouch when it comes to a sizable load. And it's a fragile load too. The delicate maze of tubes inside the main cavity can't be damaged without the efficiency of the heat exchange system being affected once installed.
It's no small task to move this giant piece of machinery over 700 kilometers to the Fosco plant in Richards Bay. And that's why the team have called in the experts.
My name is Niels Brink, and I'm working at the Mammoth as a sales manager. I'm working now 35 years as a rigger, and in the sales I'm about, I will say, around 5 to 6 years. I enjoy working with the guys and be part of a team. You see, in a Mammoth, you're not individual, but you're working as a team. We need to transport a cold heat exchanger from here to Richards Bay. Hopefully we can do it in 11 to 14 days, so it's a quite challenging job for us.
As in the last 4 days, we battled to get the truck-trailer combination here because of some industrial action at another company where they offloaded. So that has been released last night, and it's on its way. We are waiting for it. It will be here soon.
As last-minute checks get underway, the extra-large 13-axle trailer finally arrives. The team are ready to get started with the onload. But within minutes of its arrival, it's clear there's going to be a problem with the trailer.
Today when we arrived, we realized that the trailer's not going to fit in here.
Well, the trailer that we've got, the Nicholas, is too long to do those tight turns.
So we have to find a solution, this cold heat exchanger, to turn it around in a straight line so we actually can load it onto the conventional trailer.
With the clock ticking, the team get to work to come up with a new plan.
I've been in this game for just about 36 years, and I guess one gets used to it. I think lessons learned. You need to be able to think on your feet.
Having extra resources at your disposal is certainly one way of managing problems like this, especially when you have a resource as impressive as this one.
SPMT is a self-propelled modular transporter. It's good for site moves, tight areas, places where your trucks cannot get into. We need to move it in underneath the load, obviously offset because the center of gravity is a little offset.
Yes, reg. Kry net so lank uit dat ons die volklop kan inkry.
With a reduced size and increased maneuverability, the team will be able to position the SPMT in front of the heat exchanger to move it. But its height is significantly greater than that of the trailer, so the team will use hydraulic jacks to raise the heat exchanger and slip the SPMT underneath. It will then use its hydraulics to take the 120-ton weight and reposition itself inside the workshop. Now, facing the door, it'll then be lowered back onto the jacks and the SPMT will be driven out. Finally, the truck and trailer will reverse into the workshop and the heat exchanger will be lowered onto the trailer. With the heat exchanger raised, it's time for the SPMT driver to pilot the trailer into place. With an offset center of gravity, or COG, it's going to take precision driving.
You have to make sure that the COG is correctly placed on the SPMTs and make sure that everything is in good order for the transportation. Otherwise, if it's not, the COG is not centralized, you can have facing other challenges.
It's not good for the trailer as you'll only have pressure on the one side on one field and nothing on the other side, which makes it dangerous. You can tilt and drop the load.
The SPMT backs in slowly. It's got very little room for error. The trailer is in place, and it's time to reposition the SPMT. Despite the increased maneuverability, it's still a tight squeeze to get the trailer repositioned. It's time to get the heat exchanger onto the hydraulic jacks in preparation for the truck and trailer to back in.
It's nerve-wracking, but once it's done, it's a good relief that you really feel good about it.
With the last light fading, the team get the go-ahead to reverse the 13-axle trailer into the workshop. Once in, they lash the heat exchanger down, and it's job done for the day. It's been hours of setbacks, and they're already behind schedule for their 700-kilometer journey to Richards Bay.
It's 9 in the morning, and the Gauteng abnormal transport escorts have arrived. It's time to get this towering load out of the workshop and onto the road.
My naam is Chris Meyer. Ek is aangestel by Mammoth, Suid-Afrika, as 'n projekbestuurder. So die uitdaging met die cold heat exchanger wat ons gelaai het, jy wil glad nie vertragings ervaar nie. Die ander ervarings wat jy ook beleef op die pad is gewoonlik goed buite jou beheer, soos weeromstandighede. Wat almal maak staat op toerusting breek partykeer.
It's been a journey for us from last year when we started working on this project, working on very tight deadlines, planning our shutdown. If there is any delay, then you cannot either install this unit during the shutdown. You miss that opportunity. It will affect our production, which will affect the availability of fertilizer basically for the country. Therefore, for us, planning and delivering on time is very, very, very critical.
And that's why the pressure is there. We need the load to make sure that we're on the road, and we only got a few days to play with.
The load will travel at approximately 30 kilometers an hour over 15 days from Vanderbijlpark to Richards Bay in KwaZulu-Natal, a journey of over 700 kilometers. Its biggest challenges are along the R553 route coming out of Vanderbijlpark. Here it will face numerous low-hanging power lines, some that will need to be shut down and lifted by electricity supplier Eskom. Then, approaching a busy intersection near Sebokeng, the load will need to navigate congested traffic. Once through, it will face a diversion where the load will need to go off-road, along a potholed side street and a sharp left turn back onto the R553. From there, the journey eases up as they navigate country roads all the way to Richards Bay. But the built-up areas of Gauteng offer considerable challenges for this sizable load.
My name is Lenford Tonne. I'm working for Mammoth. I'm driving for multi-axle abnormal load. I like it, the abnormal loads, because you're driving different big loads. Some of them, they are heavy. Some of them, the height is too high. Some of them is very wide. So I take it easy for the people that are driving car, or the people that are walking next to the road.
With the escort moving ahead to calm oncoming traffic, the load sets out.
Up ahead, the team's first challenge, an overhead power line crossing the highway.
Because it's dangerous. If you're touching there, the truck, all the tires is gonna bend off. It cannot bend the truck, cannot bend me also. It cannot kill other people that are walking next to there.
This is going to be a painstaking process, as every line will need to be lifted to prevent the heat exchanger catching any of the cables.
A line snags and the load is brought to a halt. Any damage to this line could cause further delays. The load is through, and the team check another box on their long list. But there's no room to breathe easy. Ahead are more power cables, a busy intersection, and a dramatic detour that will take them over some very rough terrain.
Die uitdaging wat ons gehad het op die Golden Highway R553 is Eskom kan ons ongelukkig nie ondersteun met die watershed power lines wat daaroor gaan nie. En ons moet 'n alternatiewe roete vinnig beplan, en dit is deur Mashushu Street by Sebokeng.
To avoid this live, low-hanging line, the team will need to detour off the R553 and onto a service road. This means navigating chaotic traffic and pedestrians, travelling over a potholed section of road and a tight left turn to get back onto the R553.
I have to look after the load. It's like I'm carrying the baby, so I have to take care about the load. The people, they walking next to the road, they don't realize these things is big or wide. Then I have to use a water, then I water him. So I have to take care about the people also, they are driving on the road.
Lanford successfully steers the 40-metre-long load through the traffic. But now a new obstacle awaits him, a sharp right turn onto the detour. And in his path, a broken-down vehicle.
Langford, Chris and the team at Mammoth have to ensure there are no further delays with the transport of the 120-ton heat exchanger. But with the team about to take the load off the highway to avoid a power line, a new obstacle has arrived. A broken-down vehicle is now blocking their path.
Luckily, some local help is recruited for the vehicle, and with the obstruction removed, the load can proceed.
Yeah, if you're driving big load like this on the bad road, you have to driving very, very slowly because anything is gonna happen. Sometimes one axle is gonna prop out, it can come off the bolt or something. So on the potholes, I have to driving very, very slow, and then I have to take a very care.
The team reached the potholed section of the road. It's now or never to find out just how the suspension of the trailer will adjust to this new obstacle. It's tough on the axles, but the 40-metre-long trailer holds. For driver Lanford, one challenge remains to get through this detour. An extreme sharp left turn.
Very narrow, but I would have to take a care. I went drive a little bit on the right-hand side, then I turn left a little bit. Always I have to make a zigzag until I'm past there.
The load is through the turn.
As jy deur die bypass plekke beweeg, dan voel dit nogal tens en almal raak opgewonde, maar sodra jy daardeur beweeg, voel almal verlig en almal voel goed dat ons daardeur is en suksesvol deur is en geen ander uitdagings op die pad gehad het.
For the team, the rest of the journey involves 14 more days through some very scenic countryside, skirting the coalfields of Mpumalanga, down through northern KwaZulu-Natal and onto Richards Bay and the Phosphor plant. But with the pressures of the built-up Gauteng area behind them, the journey will be far less arduous.
It's been a journey for us from last year when we started working on this project, working on the very tight deadlines, planning our shutdown, and to see this unit here right on time before the beginning of our shutdown, it's excellent. It means all the planning that went very, very well.
We've got some of the best crews. I am fortunate as a project manager to have a leadership team, to have a quality system in place, and to have the people, the welders and the boiler makers working for us are definitely some of the best in the country. I'll put my head on it.
For me, I like it because I cross country sometimes. I see different people and different load and different road also. So I like for my job.
Ek dink die meeste wat ek van hou deur die loop van so 'n aflewering is die feit dat jy saamwerk as 'n span. Jy voel goed as 'n span. Jy vertrou mekaar meer. Die span word baie sterker.
The next time you start up your car, or switch on your lights, or even raise a forkful of food to your mouth, it's worth remembering what it took to get it there. Because the big, important things that make our lives easier so often depend on hard-working men and women to go the extra mile to get them there.
These are people with years of experience, with a never-say-die attitude and a 24/7 commitment. People who allow you and I to live more comfortable lives and keep the wheels of industry turning. These are the people of Abnormal Load.